and welcome to the webinar of the September 2023 release of HelloID. Due to the holidays, the setup of this webinar will be a bit different compared to the previous webinars. The service automation and provisioning experts will discuss the newly added features. If you have any questions, please ask them in the live chat and we will answer them as soon as possible. Let's start with the newly added features for the service automation domain. To show one of the features, I've prepared a self-service product called Release Demo 2023.09. Let's open this product. This product contains a form with a grid, a drop-down and a dual list. And these form elements are one of the items we have updated so the selected record is better displayed. So if we, for example, click on John in the grid, it gets a gray background color to indicate the selected record. And the same applies, for example, to this drop-down. So we can select Engineer. If I reopen the menu, it has the same gray background color as in the grid. And this used to be a blue text color for the selected record in a drop-down, but we have updated it to a more consistent way. So all the form elements are using these gray background color as a selected record. Also for the dual list, when I select two items, they are highlighted in the gray background color as well. In total, we have updated the drop-down form element, the dual list, the grid, the multi-select grid, the multi-select component, and the user selector. So all these form elements have been updated and are using the same gray background color for the selected record. One other thing you might have noticed in this screen is that the pop-up itself is a bit wider than it used to be. This gives you more space available for your form. For example, you can put more data in your columns in a grid, or you can have more text in the dual list available. So we are making a better usage of the available width of your screen. So this is one of the first items I would like to show you in this webinar. Let's continue to the other new features. We will move over to management and to managed users. In this overview, we have added two new columns. The first one is department, that displays the department of the user, and the other column is the job title, which displays the job title of the user. This information is received from the HelloID directory, and usually this is synchronized with your Active Directory or Azure Active Directory. Another thing we did in this overview, we made it a little bit wider. So the empty space around on the left and right side and the bottom side has been reduced by 50%. So we have a little bit more width available for this overview. And this also applies to all the other pages of HelloID. So every page has less empty space around the page content. And this way we were able to display more information and have a better overview of all the details. Another thing we did in this overview for the users, for the managed users, is the addition of 3 filters. The first filter is the user state filter, and this filter allows you to filter this overview only for active users or inactive users. So now we have 25 users in total, and if we filter only for inactive users, we have 3 users left that are inactive, or we can select the active users, and then we have 22 users left. We can also make use of the select all button or the clear and close, or you can just click anywhere around it and it will also close this filter menu. When you have an active filter, the filter state is highlighted in blue. So that's a clear indication that you have one of these filters active. And now we can clear the filter and the view gets reloaded with all the users. The second new filter is the department filter. This allows you to select one or multiple departments and to filter your user overview based on your selection. So for example, I see a user of the finance department. So we'll select finance. The overview gets reloaded, gets refreshed, and we have just one user left. We can also search for departments. So for example, support. And we can also filter for support. In our case, we have now finance and support selected, but I only have one user available in the finance department. So let's clear this filter and all the users are there again. And our third and final new filter in this overview is the job title filter. Here we have all the available job titles and I can select one or multiple job titles and the overview gets refreshed. So I see some engineers, so let's click on engineer. And I have 4 users with the job title engineer. Maybe I also have some designers. Let's see. Yeah, I do have some designers as well. So you can filter your overview based on user stage, department, or job title, or the combination of these filters. Another small thing we did is we updated the columns view filter. So this enables you to select one of these columns you want to see or want to hide. So now you have all the columns available, but you can, for example, hide the email column or display it again. So when you are on a smaller interface, smaller screen, you can, for example, hide one of these columns. All these updates we did to the managed users and kind of the same to the managed products. So let's move to managed products to see what the updates are on that screen. So here we are on the managed products screen. This screen displays all the products you are the resource owner of. And we have added one extra column in the screen, the categories column. And this column displays all the categories linked to the product. And if there are multiple categories linked, then they are displayed comma separated. And if this is a too long list of categories, it will be truncated. But if you hover, you have a full list of all the linked categories. Also, this overview is a little bit wider than it used to be because we have eliminated the excessive usage of empty space. So this overview is a bit wider, can display more information. And next to this new categories column, we have also introduced 3 new filters. The first one is the product categories filter. You can search for the categories or you can select one or multiple categories to filter. So for example, I only want to see the user management category. Then only one product, create Active Directory user, will disappear, will be shown, I mean. And one of these categories is user management. So it will look if you can find products that has at least the user management category linked, and also maybe the applications category. Now we have multiple products listed because all these products have the applications categories, and one of the products also has the user management. So let's clear this filter and we go to the second new filter. This is the assignment filter, and this will refresh your overview, and you can choose to only display products that has an assignment. So for example, these 2, or products that has no assignment. That are the other 3 products. They have no assignment at this moment. So now we have only these 3 products that have not been assigned to a user. And these 2 products do have assignments. The final new filter on this products overview is the availability state. This filter allows you to filter the overview based on products that are available or out of stock. And this value is also displayed in the availability column. So for example, Adobe Photoshop is 4 times assigned and has no availability left anymore. So this one is out of stock. So if we select the filter out of stock, we only have Photoshop left in this overview. And if we select the available products, then we have the other products that have availability and that are not out of stock. This number is calculated based on the maximum amount. So maximum amount is the optional configuration for a product. And for example, the Adobe Photoshop has the limit set to 4, and all 4 of these products are assigned. So now it's out of stock. But if, for example, 3 products were assigned and the other one is a pending request, that still means the product is out of stock, because 3 products already have been assigned, and the 4th and final one is a pending request, so no other new requests can be made. And you will get a nice warning when you try to request a product that is already out of stock. So these are all the features for service automation in this release, and we will continue this webinar with the new features of HelloID provisioning.
The following provisioning features will be demoed in this webinar: the iteration support for PowerShell v2 target systems, and the new feature for importing source systems directly from GitHub. Please feel free to ask your questions in the live chat. Okay, let's start with our first feature, the PowerShell v2 iteration support. It's been part of the v2 connector, so it can be found underneath target systems. I already prepared a little example. The functionality needs to be optionally enabled. So in here you have the uniqueness validation with a toggle, and once we enable this toggle, we enabled the uniqueness check. Underneath you see some icons, and all of those icons corresponding to the event. So once I open up the configuration section, I can set okay, I would like to use the create event, and once the create event has been executed, I would run a uniqueness check. And optionally I can also enable the enable event, update, delete, or disable. Well, once this is in place, we need to go to the script which is responsible for checking if a value is unique, and this works in the same way as we have with Active Directory. You have a PowerShell script, and from this PowerShell script you can start to provide which fields you would like to check. In this case, well, I have a default script in here, so there is the username and external ID. The username value should be checked if it's a unique field inside the system. So to check the field against the system, I need to provide some logic, and it depends on which type of system you're working with. So for each system you need some custom script to check if the value as generated from the mapping is already being used by another person or another account. So to determine this, we have some helper variables. And first of all is the person contact references account. This is the account of the current user, so I can check the generated value of a username if it's not already been used by another user with the same username, so I'm not checking against myself. The action context.data, it contains the fields from the mapping, so action context.data.username can be used to retrieve the value from the mapping in which the current username has been generated. And we also have the action context.operation, and this operation corresponds to the operations of the event. So in the previous screen I showed you the uniqueness check to be enabled on some specific type of events, and I can use the operation in case I would only check for unique values once an account gets created or an account gets updated. So I can check against the operation state to see in which of the events I'm working with this script. Now, once the value gets generated from the mapping, I can check it against the system, And once the system responds with, okay, I found another user which has the same username in place, I need to return a result as an output. So I said, okay, the fields are non-unique, can be set to true. And then in this loop, I would provide the name of the fields which are found as non-unique. So I don't have to return the value of the fields which has been found, but I have to send the name of the attribute back. So in this case, once the username is non-unique, I have to send as non-unique fields in the output context the value of username. This will go back and will be returned into the mapping. So if we go to the mapping and we check for the username mapping, you could see that in the complex mapping, we now also have the possibility to work with the iteration value. And this works in the same way. By default, the iteration gets started by 0. I can run my script, generate a name, send it out to the uniqueness check. That will check if there is another one. Once it is found, the iteration will be incremental and set to 1, 2, 3, etc., etc. A remark on this one is that the maximum amount of iterations has been limited to 50 maximum. So there will only be 50 iterations possible before the scripts will stop. And this is to prevent an infinite loop where we cannot return from the calculation of a unique value. To check if the value is non-unique, we have the script in place, and in some cases the maximum of 50 iterations will not be enough, and you need more. So we have also introduced the possibility to return an iteration value from the PowerShell code as an input to the iteration value being used in this JavaScript. As you can see, if we go back to the script, in the end you will see there is an output context variable which contains the iteration. And in this case we generate a random to be returned as a result. So if I have a script which will set okay between iteration 0 and 20, it should be incremental, but if it's increasing above 20, I would like to return a random. So it can be any number as an output, which can be used inside the code of the JavaScript. This PowerShell script, there's also a remark, it's has the same timeout as in the other scripts. So a maximum of 30 seconds of timeout is limited to this script. Let's move on to the second feature, the GitHub integration. And what we did for the GitHub integration is that we replaced the catalog. Before, when you enter this catalog, you had a few systems, which was built in. And for now, we integrated our GitHub repository of the Tools Forever GitHub page. And as you can see on the left side, we have a complete list of all of the systems. And these are only source systems for the provisioning engine, which can be retrieved from the catalog. Now, once we go to example system, let's take this one. The data from the repository will be retrieved and will be shown inside this model. In here, you will have the complete README file, which is part of the repository. On top, you can see the repository URL. So this is the URL of the repository which I'm currently looking at. In here we have a tag of a release, and this tag has been used to identify which version we are importing when this connector will be created. So when you say, okay, I would like this connector, we will import the release of version 2.0.1 from the GitHub repository. Those information will also be stored in Elastic. So it's also available in Elastic and can be used for reporting or troubleshooting which version was being used initially. On the right hand side, we have a few attributes, and you can see we have persons and departments, and those two attributes corresponds to the PowerShell script. Each source connector depends on two type of scripts. It's the person scripts, which is used for retrieving persons and contracts, and we have the department script, which has been used for retrieving the department data like organizational units, etc. We also have a configuration and a mapping. And the configuration contains the UI part. So once a connector has been imported, most of the time it needs some customer specific configuration. Let's say, for example, you're communicating with a web service, so you need a token, you need an endpoint, perhaps you need a username, a password, or some other settings. So it's a connector configuration which has been imported and directly usable. So the configuration is also integrated in the scripts. What you need to provide in the configuration is just some basic settings dependent on the system you're working with. And we have the mappings. And the mapping is a default mapping file. So if there is a default mapping available, we already have it in the repository. So this will also be imported, and the fields for the person and contract tabs will automatically be mapped on the default set. You can also see an exclamation mark in here. And once we hover over this one, you can see that there are extra items in this repository. For this, it's some example data. So we have different mappings. By default, we import the mapping.json file, and as you can see, we have here 2 additional mappings. If you would like to use those, you need to import them manually. And specific for this connector, you also need an integration with the source system. So we have some GET connectors for this one as well. If we have a closer look at another system, and this is an example, if we go to this system, for example, the Bamboo HR source system. It's another source system, and if I would like to create this one, this Bamboo system has some custom fields in it. So there is a mapping, and inside the mapping there are custom fields provided. Custom fields are not available by default. So once I would like to import those mapping, I need to be sure those custom fields are available as person or contract extensions. Well, to show you how it works, I would like to create this system, and it will show a toaster message on the bottom and said, okay, there are unknown fields found. And the unknown fields in this case were the custom roles. So this connector at the moment cannot be imported because the fields are missing. If you would like to solve this one, you can go to the system's custom fields. And if we go to the custom fields, we can create the custom fields as been shown by providing a display name. Said okay, it will be on the person or the contract. So in this case, it was a person field. And I said okay, the name of the field, what was missing is the role field. Be aware, the name of this field is being case sensitive. So in this case, the message showed me it was an uppercase R for role, so I need to provide it with an uppercase as well. Otherwise, it will still show the error message when try to import this one. Now, once we created this, we go to save, and we go back to the source configuration, search for the Bamboo connector again. You will see the same connector in here. And if we go to create it, it's checking the mapping, and it said, okay, the custom field, which wasn't available before, is now being available to be used. So the mapping could be imported and the system is in place. Now, when the system is created, I will get the general tab with some general information. We have the configuration, which is dependent for each system on a different set. And in this case, we need a subdomain and an API key. We have the system configuration, and the system configuration has the default person and department scripts. And it's also automatically configured as a cloud system. And if we would like to have a closer look at this toggle, I need to navigate back to systems. And if we go to the repository, you can see a system can have tags. And in this case, we have a tag cloud and we have a tag on-premise. Now, once both tags are in place, it can be used as cloud and on-premise systems. But the preferred one is the cloud. So if both tags are present, the cloud is the default setting to be used. So once we import a connector as a cloud, the toggle for cloud only will be automatically being switched to a cloud only connector. If we import a system, for example, only on premises, the toggle will be set to on premises. So this will be toggled automatically based on the tags of our GitHub repository. Now when we go back to the configuration of this connector, you saw that we have the general configuration assistant tab in place, and we also have the person, and the person has the mapping file to be present. And in here you could see this field, which I recently created because it was missing, is also automatically being part of the mapped fields, and also be filled with the correct mapped value from the source. We have reached the end of this webinar. For the full list of our features and release notes, please visit roadmap.hellod.com. Thank you for watching this webinar. See you next time.